And one. Welcome to the latest edition of the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. This show is being produced and directed by the great Chase Smith. And when I say I'm happy to be here, I really mean it. And that's how I want to open this podcast. A tremendous debt of gratitude that I owe to God and to my wife, Denise. I have been battling a very severe case of poison ivy. And I hadn't had a skin ailment, by the grace of God, I hadn't been afflicted with a skin ailment since I was a kid. And so to have this happen, I did not know that I had encountered the poison ivy. When I did, I was clearing some brush and whatnot. But my body was taken over by some of the nastiest, gnarliest stuff ever. And if not for the leadership of my wife, the lovely and talented Denise, I don't know where I'd be right now. But about a week ago, she got me in to see a dermatologist that she knows, and I was given steroid cream and a steroid shot in the rear end. And I mean, the full boat to try to handle this. And to this point, I mean, I feel really, really good. I feel like we turned a corner about 3 days ago, and now I look actually recognizable, and the skin is much, much, much more under control. All the big splotches are faded. There's no gnarly stuff anywhere other than, like scar looking stuff. But the bottom line is I prayed. I really prayed. I said, God, please get me out of this, because I feel like an alien. And if you do get me out of it, I promise I'll be better on the other side. I know we've all done that, I'm sure, at some point with a difficult event. And I'm not saying that, this battle was life or death. I don't want to put, it in that category. I don't want to hyperbolize by any stretch, but it was jarring in its severity. And even my wife was a little bit concerned, which, made me concerned. But I said to God, please get me out of this. And he has. And I also, owe my wife a tremendous amount to helping me get through this. I mean, all the creams and all the Band-Aids and all the cleanings and everything that had to be done was just, it's crazy. And I really now have an empathy for those who have skin ailments. And my heart goes out to you, because this was a beast. And I pray that I never have to deal with this beast again. I also, in the opening portion of the Dennis Manoloff Show, this particular edition, I want to make sure I congratulate, before it gets too far in the rearview mirror, Collin Morikawa, the champion golfer of the year for 2021. We call it the British Open. They call it the Open Championship. But Collin Morikawa last week got it done, and he's one of my favorite players. My favorite golfer is Phil Mickelson, probably always going to be that way. But Collin Morikawa is right there in my second tier as far as favorites go. I started keeping track of him when he was having a great amateur career, great collegiate career, and you could just see the talent. He had the mental game, the physical game, and here he is on the PGA Tour at 24 years and change years old, and he's already got two majors in his pocket. He won the 2020 PGA and now the 2021 Open. I think it's 5 PGA Tour titles now, or 6. But he just was so good this past week, and I had to fend off Louis Oosthuizen, I had to fend off Jordan Spieth, but Morikawa certainly has a look of a star. I mean, he's already in golf a star, but I'm talking about the transcendent type star. You don't want to say the next, ETW, the next Eldrick Tiger Woods, because there's only one Tiger. And a lot of guys post-Tiger, Tiger's still relevant, but a lot of guys have been declared, okay, he's the next big thing, including guys like Rory McIlroy and Dustin Johnson and Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth. So I don't want to sit here and automatically guarantee that Collin Morikawa is going to dominate for years and years and years, but he checks a whole lot of boxes. And, he has the impeccable swing. He's got the, as I said, the mental game, the psychological. He thinks things through. He's obviously a very bright dude. And on top of that, his golf IQ is through the roof. But what I like, among many things about Morikawa, is his willingness to use his caddy. As smart as he is, you figure if anybody could get around a golf course in a PGA event without a caddy, it would be Collin Morikawa. But what he does is he really engages his caddy, and they are a tag team, and he talks to the caddy before every shot, and they're going over everything. And so I appreciate the fact that Morikawa is willing to delegate and willing to rely on his caddy for a lot. But what a marvelous start to the career for Collin Morikawa. Now 2 majors in, I think, 8 starts. This was his first Open Championship start. So incredible job by Collin Morikawa. All right. When we return to the Dennis Manoloff Show, a lot of sports to talk about.
Hey, this is John Sable.
And I'm Scott Sable.
And we're hosts of the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, a podcast about Cleveland sports. But this is not your typical podcast about the land's sports teams.
Join us as we embark on a journey of sharing a unique and historical side of Cleveland sports history, with the help from some former Cleveland sports stars and other historical figures. John and I will dive deep into a side of Cleveland sports history that many fans are not aware of.
Plus, we'll tackle current sports topics surrounding the Browns, Cavaliers, and Indians, and go behind the scenes with some of the land's top sports heroes right here on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, all part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Like most Northeast Ohio natives, John and I grew up diehard Cleveland sports fans. We share a passion for Cleveland sports and for our team's rich histories. So what a better way to express and share our dedication to the teams we love than to talk about it with you.
Scott and I have made our careers in television. Scott, a meteorologist in Cleveland, and I, a veteran sports anchor and reporter. So we bring our knowledge of the Cleveland sports scene and our TV experience right here to our very own podcast.
Every episode will jump into current topics and share some untold Cleveland sports stories about our teams with the help of some special guests.
So if you're a fan of Cleveland sports and a fan of Cleveland sports history and want a brand new perspective on C-Town's sports scene with a brother's perspective, then this podcast is for you.
We hope you can join us on the Sable Brothers on the Baseline podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Congratulations also to the Milwaukee Bucks, your 2021 NBA champions. Game 6 unfolded as Chase and I were taping. We were keeping it on, we had it on the TV. We're keeping our eyes on it. The Milwaukee Bucks defeated the Phoenix Suns in Game 6 to win the series 4-2. And that means Giannis Antetokounmpo has his first NBA championship. And to me, it couldn't happen to a better guy. I'll tell you what, I love the Cavs. Even Kevin Love, when he's on the Cavs, I love the Cavs. I want to see the Cavs succeed first and foremost. But I would submit that my favorite NBA player outside of Cleveland has got to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. And you say, well, you're a front runner. Of course he'd be your favorite because he's multi-MVP. Now he's a champ. But, yeah, okay. But he's also one of the most gracious stars that I've heard from and listened to and, read about. Unbelievably nice guy. He's proof that nice guys finish first, can finish first. He is not a jerk. He's anything but a jerk. He doesn't act like he's the man. I mean, yeah, he poses with, biceps flexed and clenched teeth and all that. Fine. Everybody does that. He's doing it because he's a competitor. But this guy never shows up anybody on the court. He is absolutely, positively what any sport would want as a lead dog. And we know he's not the lead dog in the NBA, but he's one of, and he should be right now, the main guy. Even LeBron has to take a back seat to Giannis at this point, now that Giannis has the title. But Giannis Antetokounmpo is a guy that you can root for, that you can get behind. Even if you're a casual NBA fan, I consider myself a pretty engaged NBA fan. And as long as the Bucks aren't playing the Cavs, I'm rooting for Antetokounmpo. So I'm thrilled that he won the ring for himself, number one, okay? Even though he would be the ultimate guy and say, hey, I'm winning it for my team, my teammates, and Milwaukee, that. Greece, he put a lot of it before himself. I'm happy that Giannis won it for himself, primarily because he doesn't have to hear anymore. Oh, Giannis, when are you going to win that first title? Oh, Giannis, those MVPs, yeah, you're racking them up, but you haven't won anything yet. And you're playing in Milwaukee. You really play in Milwaukee? You sure win a title in Milwaukee? All that talent to go to waste? That stuff I just said about Giannis, even though he's early in his career. It's been said about him already. You had people who desperately want Giannis to leave that little old town of Milwaukee and spread his wings in LA or Chicago or New York or Brooklyn or wherever, wherever a big market is, Miami. At some point, oh, Giannis, you're going to have to go to a big market title. Well, guess what? He doesn't. He's got a title, and the Milwaukee Bucks are a whale of a team. The Phoenix Suns found that out in a blink of an eye because that series opened up 2-0 Suns, and I heard a lot of people nationally saying, oh, this the Phoenix Suns, they're on their way, and, Milwaukee Bucks are going to be nothing roadkill, and Chris going to get his first ring, and Devin Booker to be a first champion, and DeAndre Ayton. This Suns team, oh my goodness, they're up 2-0. It'll be over before you know it. Wrong. All those people that had the Bucks buried are eating crow now because the Bucks came back in the next four. So as painful as it is for CP3, who was pursuing his first ring, an illustrious, one of his point guards to ever do it, but ringless, you wonder if he's going to go the way of John Stockton, as far as superlative point guards, superstar point guards who never won it. You feel for CP3, you feel for Devin Booker, you feel for the great Monty Williams. So I don't know how many more years CP3 has with the Suns. And if you take Paul out of the equation, are the Suns anywhere near as formidable as they are going? That's a question that will have to be answered if and when time comes with CP3. But it's not like Ayton and Booker are growing old with CP3. I mean, Chris Paul is the elder statesman. Guys like Booker and Ayton are youngsters. On the Bucks side of it, why can't this team come back and handle the East again. Why not? I mean, you watch this series, you watch them in the playoffs. That's a long, athletic, nasty team. And I'd say nasty in the, most flattering of the word. I mean, those guys are gritty and they're willing to grind and they're willing to hustle and they're unbelievable. I mean, when you talk about trying to shoot over guys, I can't even imagine how hard it is. Antetokounmpo and his length and Holiday with his defense and Middleton and Lopez. Nate and Tucker came through for them this year. So the Milwaukee Bucks are a handful. They proved it by winning. I don't think they're a one-off. They were knocking on the door the past couple of years and then finally broke through and they cashed it. I mean, they cashed their opportunity. They finally got to the finals and they made the most. And congratulations to Giannis, to Chris Middleton, to Robin Lopez, was it Brooke or Robin? I can't remember.
Brooke.
I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Brooke Lopez and PJ Tucker and
Drew Holiday.
And Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday was just phenomenal. You're hearing the voice of God, as it were, Chase Smith. Bobby Portis Jr.
Giannis' stat line tonight, 42 minutes, 50 points in game 6.
He had 50?
50 points, D-Man. He was 17 from 19 from the free throw line, 14 rebounds, and 6 blocks.
What was he from the field?
16 for 25.
Okay. As much as I loved, and I'm so glad that Chase Smith jumped in with the box and with the names. What Chase Smith just told you, the worldwide audience for the Dennis Manoloff Show, Chase, one more time, I want you to read Giannis Antetokounmpo's Game 6 stat line board.
Series clinching, home court, NBA Finals victory, 42 minutes, 16 of 25 from the field, 17 of 19 from the free throw line, D-Man, 14 rebounds, 5 blocks, 50 points. That's it.
Listen.
Legend.
As much as I loved, any assists or steals?
2 assists.
Not that he needed them. As much as I loved LeBron and Kyrie in Game 6 of the 2016 NBA Finals, as much as I loved LeBron in a lot of NBA Finals games, that stat line that Chase Smith just read might be the greatest NBA Finals stat line ever. I would like to know who had a better stat line than that in an NBA Finals game, let alone an NBA title clinching game. That's ridiculous. That's video game numbers. And all the congratulations I was giving to Giannis, honestly, I was doing it before I even knew what his final line was. I knew he was putting up points, but I wasn't able to tell because the TV's far away from me. I wasn't able to tell exactly how many, and I was trying to pay attention to the pod. But I had no idea it was that awesome of a stat. Not just because 50 is a beautiful number, when it comes to an NBA of any, let alone an NBA Finals clinching game. But look at the efficiency. The efficiency is incredible. I mean, 25 shots to score 50 points in a series clinching NBA Finals tight game.
Hey, he's 26 years old.
25 shots to score 50 points.
He's 26.
26. I mean, that's insane. And the one area where you wonder about Giannis is the free throw line. Well, guess what? Chase just read it. 17 of 19 from the line. That's better than LeBron in most of his NBA Finals games. That's better than a lot of really good free throw shooters in their NBA Finals games. And who would have thought, as great as Giannis is, the reason why you did wonder about his free throw is expressly because he has had bad games at the line in these playoffs and other playoffs and regular season games. He has struggled at the line. It's not like people were up, oh, Giannis can't make free throws on a regular basis. He was giving critics the ammunition to say, well, there's the one weakness. You put Giannis on the line with the game on the line, he might miss a lot. Not tonight. 17 of 19 for the big fella. What an amazing game. What an amazing series. All right. When we return to the Dennis Manoloff Show, a lot of sports to talk about. And obviously, you know, the big three with the Indians, the Cavs, and the Browns.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading,
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
the sports podcast for the sports collector.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
You've been pining, you've been waiting for Rega and Rhoda to get back together. We got you. Press Play Podcast. We're ready to go. We're going to have our podcast with everything that you want. Browns, Cavaliers, Indians, Ohio State, the national scene. Kenny Rhoda, Michael Regai back together again. Make sure you keep your ears open. It's happening right here on Press Play Podcast. See you then.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. It's time to talk Indians. I wish I didn't have to say this. I've held out as long as I possibly could, but the Cleveland Indians are not ready for prime time, or even if they were ready for prime time, they aren't now because of the injuries. They entered tonight as we tape on a Tuesday, July 20th. They entered at 47 and 44. It's going to be 47 and 45 fairly soon because they're getting dump trucked at Minute Maid Park by the Astros. Before tonight's game, 3.8% chance to make the postseason, less than 0.1% to win the World Series, according to Baseball Reference. They were 17 and 27 against teams 500 or better. And that'll, again, drop to 17 and 28 when they finish off their loss to the Astros tonight. Oh, by the way, the Astros 6-0 against the Indians. They swept them in a 4-game series in Cleveland before the All-Star break, and now they've taken the first 2 of a 3-game series in their place. And as much as I want to believe that the Indians have a chance, because the math says they have a chance at least, even though Baseball Reference doesn't think very highly of it. But I'm talking about the fact that they're not 10 games under 500 and 15 out. They're actually still competitive in the wild card chase, but it is a crowded wild card chase. Essentially, if you want to include Cleveland, if you want to include the Angels, 7 teams for 2 spots. The division certainly appears to be out of the question. I mean, the White Sox are handily winning the Central, the AL Central. So if the Indians are going to somehow manage to get into the playoffs, they're going to probably have to do it, almost certainly going to have to do it via the wild card. And that path is very difficult, as we just pointed out. I mean, you're having to deal with Toronto, New York, the Angels, the Mariners, the Athletics, the Rays, if you're Cleveland. And then Cleveland would be the 7th team. The Indians have done a really nice job to be above 500 given the injury situation. There's no question about it. Any rational mind, anybody who steps away from the table and, looks at this season dispassionately says, look, anytime you lose Shane Bieber for an extended period and then Aaron Savali for an extended period, and they had lost Zach Plesac for an extended period. He recently came back. Your top 3 starters have been out for too long. It's very difficult for a team such as the Indians with the payroll, with the market size, with the self-imposed, in a lot of cases, budget constraints. I'm not sitting here saying that the Dolan Family Trust is being stopped from spending money, but they've chosen to go down the, penny pinching path and keep the payroll to almost a bare minimum. So when you start a season that way, you don't have much margin for error. You can't lose your big guys. And the Indians lost essentially their top 3 in the rotation. And then Tristan McKenzie was scheduled to be 4 in the rotation, had, gone off the rails for a while, was sent back to AAA multiple times. He didn't pitch particularly well tonight in Houston. So the rotation has been decimated, and therefore you can't expect the Indians to do a whole lot. And that's why 47 and now 45 isn't all that bad. And there's also been injuries to Franmil Reyes for an extended period. Jose Ramirez has been nicked up here and there. Roberto Perez has been out. So it's been a tough year for Cleveland on the injury front. All that said, it's still disappointing to me that as I speak to you on Tuesday, July 20th, the Indians' record is 47 and going to be 47 and 45. That's disappointing. And yeah, the injuries have happened and the injuries have been problematic, but still, I'd like to think there were more victories in this team. And the reason I like to think that is because I felt like the overall team defense hasn't been nearly good enough. The base running has not been nearly good enough. The situational hitting at times hasn't been anywhere nearly good enough. And that's why you really can look at this team through 2 prisms. You can look at it through the, excuse explanation prism. What do you want them to do? What they've done so far is a minor miracle under Terry Francona. And then you can also look at the prism where if they would have tightened certain things up, such as defense and base running and situational hitting, that maybe they'd be better off and be actually feeling like a contender for an AL playoff position. But they're going to keep grinding as to how they're going to treat the trade deadline. It doesn't feel good to me. It feels like they're going to stand pat. I don't think they're going to try to add anything. They weren't going to add major names to begin with. They weren't going to take on significant payroll. Certainly they weren't going to rent. But now, given how overmatched they've looked against Houston, given how the Yankees, even when they're down, appear to be better than Cleveland, Tampa Bay certainly appears to be better than Cleveland. The Indians haven't even played the AL East leading Red Sox. The Toronto Blue Jays look better than the Indians, certainly on the offensive side. So the reality is that the Indians are probably not going to do much at the deadline. And that's going to be sad, because that means that It doesn't automatically mean they will go belly up. It doesn't automatically mean they won't somehow rise up and win a wild card spot or somehow track down the White Sox in the division. It just means by not doing much at the trade deadline, it means that fans sit there and go, all right, well, a lot of other teams around the Indians are improving at the deadline, and we're not. So what does that tell you? I just hate when I get overcome by a feeling of resignation regarding a baseball season for the team that I love, the Indians. And that's where I am right now as we hit late July. I'm in that resignation mode where it just feels like the season is not going to result in any sort of contention for a playoff spot in September, realistic contention for a playoff spot in September. And I hope I'm wrong, but I think I'm going to be right about that. And that's sad because, that's a full year. And, it's another year with Terry Francona, who's a great manager in my mind, a future Hall of Famer, soon to be the all-time winningest manager in Indians history. It's another year where you had Terry Francona in the dugout and you didn't win at all. And you also look at some of the downward trends the Indians have had since the World Series in 2016, blew the 3-1 lead to the Cubs. And then the following year up 2-0 in the division series, lost to the Yankees 3-2. And then in 18 got swept by the Astros in the division series. 19 didn't make the playoffs. 20 made the playoffs, but got swept out of the wild card series 2-0 by the Yankees. So I think it's 8 consecutive playoff losses for the Indians, all under Francona. That's disappointing. And, it stings if you're an Indians fan. Are there reasons to be optimistic in the years to come? Yeah, sure. Assuming good health for Bieber and Savale and Plesac coming back next year at least. You've got control over a lot of these guys. Jose Ramirez, you have club options for 2022 and 2023 that are affordable. You would think 11 and 13, I believe, are $1 million. Franmil, you got him for a while. Bobby Bradley, exciting to see what he can do in a full year at first base. Ahmed Rosario growing into the shortstop role. Who knows if Bradley Zimmer can finally stick. Harold Ramirez has been interesting. So there are reasons to be optimistic about the Indians going forward. It's not like this is an over-the-hill gang, bunch of 39-year-olds at one last gasp, and they came up short. There's talent on this team. They should be good again next year. But when you feel like a season is lost, it's a tough deal, in my opinion. And that's how I'm viewing the Indians right now, that it's just not going to result in contention in September, let alone a playoff spot. All right. When we return to the Press Play Podcast Network's production of the Dennis Manoloff Show, I'll talk about my favorite NBA player. You know where I'm going with this. I know there's a little sarcasm there.
This is Mike Voorhees, co-host of the Swing and a Tribe MLB podcast. If you love Cleveland Indians baseball, then this is the pod for you. We've got you covered each week as we talk about all the games, breaking news, trades, the roster, all things Tribe. You're going to love it. Go Tribe.
Hey, it's Tito, host of the Premier Fantasy Podcast. Get all the news and analysis you need to dominate your fantasy league. I've been doing this as long as anybody in the business. I can help give you the edge in your leagues. It's the Premier Fantasy Podcast, part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. You knew it was going to happen with me. Anyone who knows me, anyone who's listened to me, knows that I'm not the biggest fan of Kevin Love. Not the person, but the ball player. Okay, I admire Kevin Love, the person, and what he's been through with his, mental issues. I have mental issues as well. I've dealt with depression, continue to deal with depression and anxiety. So I feel for Kevin Love on the personal side. It's never anything personal with me. Almost always when I criticize or critique a player, it's almost never personal. Once in a while, I'm still frosty about a player that I might have dealt with over the years who I thought was a jerk, or who I witnessed doing something jerkish to a fan or some other media member. So then it gets personal, but that's rare. And in Love's case, it's not about the person at all. It's strictly about the player. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I knew that this experiment with Team USA was going to end badly. I said so much at the time. I was actually stunned that he was even going to be on the roster for the 2020 Olympics, which, by the way, may or may not unfold, unfortunately, with the COVID rise again. Who knows? I pray that it does. I mean, in Tokyo, but even if it does, it's not going to be with fans, and it's going to be really weird. But given all the energy and the time, the money that's put into the Olympics, and those athletes who have done unbelievable amounts of work for years to get to this point, I pray it does go off. But you wonder now. Well, when the news was out that Love was going to be on this team, I was like, really? The same guy who's missed a bazillion games for the Cavaliers over the last few years? Certainly not the picture of health since LeBron left the second time in the 3 seasons post-LeBron 2.0. Kevin Love has been out of the lineup more than he's been in the lineup. And when he's been on the court, contrary to Love apologists, he hasn't been all that good. Especially this past year, he had a handful of good games, and the rest of it was largely junk for a guy who's getting paid $30 million a year. This past season was the second of a 4-year, $120 million extension that Love signed. That was a mind-boggling extension. Why the Cavs signed him to that, I'll never know. I said that at the time. Do not hitch your wagon to this guy. He will let you down. He's not a leader. He's not a front runner. He's not a superstar. When he was with KI and the King, when he was with with Kyrie and LeBron, it was 2.5. It was the big 2.5. It wasn't the big 3. Yes, Kevin Love did some really good things for the Cavs. His legacy in Cleveland will always be looked at overall fondly because of the 2016 title. That will never be taken away from Kevin Love. He was a contributing member of that team, the 15-16 Cavs, who won the first title for the city in 52 years. He deserves mega props for that. I've never come off that position. But I've always believed that it was LeBron, Kyrie, and Love was playing sort of a supporting role. It wasn't the 3 superstars carrying the Cavs. But any criticism of Love subsequent to 2016, it doesn't diminish at all what he accomplished with that special team, with that historic team that won a title. Unfortunately, though, his career didn't end in 16, and you're obligated to analyze what he does after the title, just as we do with anybody else who continues to play after a title team, such as KI, such as LeBron. And Love post-title just hasn't been very good. For the most part, he hasn't been available. And that's why I was stunned that he was on this Olympic team. By the way, chasing his second gold. He's already got a gold in the Olympics. I just didn't understand it. I couldn't understand how the Cavs would sign off on it. But then there was a small, very, very small part of me that said, well, wait a minute. Maybe, just maybe, the Cavs want Love to look great in the summer, look great in the Olympics, and be attractive again to some team out there so the Cavs could offload him. Maybe that was what it was. That was the motivation for the Cavs allowing this to happen. Because you would think if the Cavs threw up the roadblock and said, no, we're not letting this guy play for the Olympics because he needs to get healthy for us in 2021-22, you would think that that would be enough to stop Love from playing, or would stop Team USA from selecting him. But he was selected, and at the time I said, well, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe this version of Kevin Love as an Olympian when I see it, and guess what? The other day, he tapped out, and it's most likely traceable to his calf, the injury that hampered him so severely this past season. We don't know exactly what it is, but we think it's related to the calf. And so Love, no longer with Team USA, will not be pursuing the gold. And in one sense, for Cavs fans' sake, I hope that it works out where Love heals for the remainder of the summer and is ready to go in the fall for the team who pays him $30 million a year to play, which is the Cavaliers. On the other hand, I have my doubts. And even if Love does come back healthy, what kind of a fit is he on the Cavs anymore? I mean, I just don't think he's a guy who can carry a team for more than one night here and there. And I don't know that the young guys are going to sit here and learn from Kevin Love. Now, that said, Darius Garland, high praise for Kevin Love, and Darius Garland's talked about how much Kevin Love has mentored him and taught him about the game. But yeah, Darius Garland's also the son of a former NBA player, and I think Darius Garland's fine on his own. I don't think he has to have Kevin Love around to survive. But my hope is that the Cavs can move on from Kevin Love as soon as possible. The problem is they've been trying to move on from him. No takers. Number one, because he's not reliable to be on the court on a regular basis. Number two, because even when he's on the court on a regular basis, he's not all that in a bag of chips. And number three, his salary is what it is. And, another team doesn't necessarily want to take that on. Yeah, we know you have to have salary for salary, but he's got a lot of things that are stopping him from being attractive to another team. And this injury tap out for Team USA is only going to make other teams go, well, really? I mean, you kidding me? No way. We're not taking this guy on. We can't be sure he's going to be healthy. And we're going to owe him $30 million next 2 years. So I think he's stuck as a Cavalier. So that as long as he's stuck as a Cavalier, he's got to get himself in the best shape he can possibly get in. He has to mentally prepare like, I need to earn my paycheck. I have to absolutely go out there and do everything in my power to help the Cleveland Cavaliers and show them that I am worth. I'll take 70% of your $30 million or 60% of your $30 million annually. So too bad for Love, too bad for the Cavs, but it should come as a shock to no one that Love is out of the mix with Team USA in the Olympics. When we return, a quick hit on what the Cavs should do in the upcoming draft.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Hi, my name is Sam Post, owner of Phenomwell CBD Store and PhenomwellCBD.com. That's like phenomenal, PhenomwellCBD.com. Tune in where we talk with experts about how the amazing hemp plant can make a difference for people's health and well-being from the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey, it's JD from the Hyman Podcast. I created this podcast to have hard conversations. Conversations that make us human but are also wildly uncomfortable. Conversations that help give voice to the voiceless and to the marginalized. Now you can listen to the entire first season on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Consider this your personal invitation to join the conversation.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. NBA draft coming up next week. Can't wait. Excited. The Cavaliers in the 3-hole. Finally got some lottery luck. Yeah, they didn't get 1 or 2, but at least they got 3. And they will come away with a very good player if they do what I ask them to do. And I'm not the only one who's asking them to do this. Stay put. Stay where you are at 3 and get a really, really, really good player. No, that player will not be Cade Cunningham, who's almost certainly going to go to Detroit at number 1. Cunningham is a transcendent talent. But beneath Cunningham, there is a group that's outstanding, and you can win a lot of games with them, presumably. And that group includes Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, and Jalen Suggs. Not restricted to those 3, but includes those 3. And guess what? When I list Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, and Jalen Suggs, that's 4 names, and the Cavs sit 3. So if they stay put, they come out of the draft with one of those 4 guys. And again, it won't be Cunningham, but very well could be Mobley. If not Mobley, Green. If not Green, Suggs. Can't go wrong, in my opinion, there. Houston, who knows what they're going to do at 2. Maybe they like Jalen Green a lot. Okay, fine. You take Evan Mobley, you drop him in at the 4, and Jared Allen's your 5, and you roll with that. If Green is gone, if Mobley's gone, you take Green or you take Suggs. However you see this team going forward as general manager, Kobe Altman. So I have no issues whatsoever with the Cavaliers if they stay put and they grab, again, realistically, either Mobley, Green, or Suggs. As to what that means for Kevin Love, Kevin Love hopefully is just this hardworking lunch pail supporting cast guy, even at $30 million. But as to what that means for, the Sexland backcourt of Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, let the Cavs figure that out. Does that mean automatically, does one of those signal that Darius Garland might be moved or Colin Sexton might be moved? I don't know. I think Green can play regardless, but Suggs, it would be more of a point guard situation. But I trust Kobe Altman to figure it out. Yes, I've had questions about him and his decision-making in this rebuild. I don't think he's by any means perfect, and he would probably be the first to admit it. I don't blame him, though. Make sure you know this. I don't blame him for the Kevin Love extension. I think that was Dan Gilbert. I think that was Dan Gilbert telling Kobe Altman, we are going to sign Kevin Love. LeBron has left. Kyrie was traded. We're keeping one of those 3 guys, and we're going to make him happy, and we're going to build around him. And that was a mistake, but it wasn't. To me, that was not Kobe Altman's mistake. That was ownership's mistake. And what's Altman going to do as a young GM? Is he going to say, oh, that's on Dan Gilbert? And of course not. He'll take that. He'll take the hit for that, but he shouldn't. But overall, I trust Kobe Allman that he knows what he's doing. I trust his basketball people that they're going to be able to figure out how to fit these guys. If there is a Collin Sexton trade, okay. But all the trade proposals I've heard so far don't make any sense from the Cavaliers' perspective. They're pretty much laughable. I mean, the Cavs hold Collin Sexton in high regard. They're not going to give him away for some of the, proposed trade offers that have been coming down the pike. They're probably laughing at him, not even acknowledging them. So I'm guessing Collin Sexton remains a Cav through the draft, but we'll see. At the very least, stay put at 3, Kobe. Listen to your basketball people and you, because Kobe's a very smart basketball guy. We know that. And take a really good player at 3, and you should be happy. And I wish you were Cunningham, but it won't be. But you can still come out of that draft feeling good about yourselves. All right. When we return to the Dennis Manoloff Show, Press Play Podcast Network, I'll wrap with a little Browns talk.
Want to hear more about your favorite TV shows and movies that are on countless streaming services?
Then listen to Up Next with your new favorite hosts, me, Kristen Aviles,
and me, Christina Walter.
Every other week, we'll highlight one genre, but 2 movies or TV shows, one old and one new.
We'll let you know what's hot and what's not from your favorite
or least favorite
streaming services.
And be sure to stay tuned to the end of each episode where we shout out an artist whose name you should know for their talent in the industry.
So follow us to stay up to date with your favorite hosts from Up Next,
a part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of the Producing While Asian podcast. Join us to listen in on conversations with everyone who identify from producers to non-producers who all are part of the AAPI community. There's all that and more on the Producing While Asian podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back, Cleveland Browns. I cannot wait. Many people cannot wait for the start of Browns training camp just around the corner later this month. Enormous expectations for this team. That's fine. I'd rather have a team with enormous expectations than a team that's expected to win 2 or 3 games. Do I feel a little uneasy, though, having said that? Yeah, because 2 years ago, huge expectations for the Browns. They fell on their face. The difference between now and 2 years ago was the Browns were coming off of a losing season. And, the Freddie Kitchens era, okay, everything was fine. But the previous year, they hadn't done a whole beating up on some bad teams. They were 500. They were sub 500. This year, they're coming off of a really good year, 11 victories in a 16-game season and a playoff victory at Pittsburgh. So a different set of circumstances there. A better roster from 2 years ago. A lot better, in my opinion, in terms of importing not only draft talent, but free agent talent. Yes, the Browns have to stay healthy like every team. Yes, they have injury concerns going in. They have guys who are no guarantee to stay healthy given their track record, such as, edge Jadeveon Clowney and cornerback Greedy Williams and Grant Delpit coming off of an Achilles. So the Browns need to get health luck in order to get where they want to go. But there's no question that this team has talent pretty much everywhere you look. They've got offensive players who can do a lot of things. They've got a line is as good as any line I can remember with the Cleveland Browns. And it's certainly post 1999. If that line stays healthy, Will and Bitonio and Treader and Teller and Conklin. That's a big if. Yeah, I get it. But if they stay healthy and play the vast majority of the 17-game season, each one of them, you figure it's going to be special. Bake Show, second year with Stefanski, doesn't have to relearn a system. It's got skill position players everywhere. Odell's coming back. You got Chubb and Hunt in the backfield. So I can't wait. And most importantly, too, the defense has gotten appreciably better on paper. We'll see how it all fits with Joe Woods, the DC, but I trust Woods. He was very diplomatic last year, and, he stayed calm and, didn't make excuses when the defense was having issues. But, privately, he was saying, hey, give me some more guys. Give me some better players in certain positions, and I'll do more damage. Well, now he's set up on paper at least to do more damage. We'll see how it goes. Could be a rough opener at Kansas City, but I'm not going to panic because I know how good the Chiefs are. But I'm really excited for the Browns, and I wish the season were starting tomorrow, but the NFL players are like, easy, D-man. Hold on a second here. We got to go through camp, and then we got a 17-game season ahead of us, and then the playoffs. So we'll start when we are scheduled to start. We don't care whether you want it to start in July. So good luck to the Cleveland Browns, and we'll be, keeping an eye on them closely as we go forward. And, we got all kinds of coverage on the Press Play Podcast Network as to the Browns, and I'll chip it in as we go. All right. Thank you very much for listening to this particular edition of the Dennis Manoloff Show on the Press Play Podcast Network. We'll talk to you soon.